Are you in need of a reliable place to print your designs? Look no further than Outreach.com. As a preferred printer partner for over 20,000 churches similar to yours, they've got everything that you need. From postcards to banners or new mover mailers, Outreach.com is here to assist. Reach more with their professional and tailored services. Again, that's Outreach.com. Make your message stand out today.
Welcome to the Church Communications Podcast, powered by Church Visuals. We believe that effective communication is integral to leading your congregation and community. Join Katie Allred and Carl Barnhill each week to dive into insights and strategies that will help you grow your church. Whether you're a pastor, a church leader, or someone interested in maximizing your communication to make a difference, you're in the right place. Let's get started.
Hello, welcome back to the Church Communications Podcast. I'm Katie Allred, and I am joined again by Carl. Carl, how are you doing?
Hello. I'm doing great. So I was telling you, I am sending my 12-year-old off to student camp today. Big moment for the dad life. He's going to be gone for a week. So first time for big camp. So yeah, we'll see. By the time this airs, I don't know, I'll be in PTSD or
How
something.
old is he?
He's 12.
Oh, great.
So
it's a perfect time to go to camp.
Yep. So, I mean, I'm a pastor's kid, so I lived at camp every
Okay,
summer.
yeah, same. Well, I mean, I'm not a pastor's kid, but I worked camp for several summers and also lived at camp. And I think I first started going to camp when I was like 9-ish. I went to GA camp, which is a Baptist, Girls in Action camp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you need me to recite the RA pledges and stuff, it's still burned
Royal
in.
Ambassador Pledge? Do you need to say the Royal Ambassador Pledge, Carl?
I'm good.
For a minute.
I'm good.
How I got into RAs for just a split second, So I was in RAs because they had a basketball league, and I was already 6 foot tall when I was 12. So they were like, we got to put her on the team. I was the only girl on the entire league.
Got you.
And I was the number one at assist. All the little boys were just trying to get the ball. And I was like, absolutely not. It's my house.
Royal ambassadors, and Katie.
And Katie. I'm a royal ambassador too. Okay, Carl.
Yes.
God loves me too. So,
yes. I'm
also a royal ambassador.
You're a royal and an ambassador, Katie.
That is true. I'm also a girl in action. So either one, I was there for all of it. So I'm sorry if we brought up any SBC PTSD for anyone. That's my disclaimer for this morning. So
I have good memories of camp. I'm just thinking of your kid, Carl. It's dude, that's the best time to focus in on what God maybe have as far as a calling or whatever. That's what happened to me. I made major decisions at camp that totally changed the trajectory of my life. So I'll be praying, dude.
Please do. I'm very excited because no technology, things like that. Of course, which is hilarious because we don't let our kids have smartphones anyway. We got one seriously old school flip phone that we let him take occasionally, but
nice.
But yeah, so yeah, excited. I'll give a report next time we're together.
Okay. That's what I'm looking forward to. And then this mysterious voice that's on the other line is Jason Morris from Resi. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I really am. I'm just privileged to be here in the company of such great people. I was just looking forward to this for a long time.
Oh, good. Yeah, same. And, I love camp for the same reasons, even though this is not a podcast about camp this morning. Everyone has lovely camp memories. And, let's be honest, that is, like you said, it's because you're away from your parents. You can kind of make independent decisions for yourself and where you think God's calling you. And that's a wonderful time because it just doesn't happen very often. So we love that. Yeah. Okay, well, Jason, will you tell us a little bit about yourself, your journey, how you got here, where you are, and a little bit about Red?
Okay, yeah. Wow. I'll start with camp. So, I'll start there. When I was 11, I made a decision that I was going to let God be the Lord of my life. I knew him as Savior, but I didn't know him as Lord. And I thought that of all the people to like run my life, he could probably do a better job than I did. And so I decided that at 11, and at 12, felt like, God was calling me to the mission field, which, by the way, 11, 12, that was when I started programming, got my first programming job when I was 12 too.
So much fun.
Which,
I think we have
yes.
very similar stories, Jason.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I never really knew how those two different worlds would collide, especially like missionary, computer programmer. Those things have absolutely nothing to do with each other in my mind. And little did I know that God was going to converge those two paths to allow me to do ministry as a missionary, empowered by technology from the very beginning. And then continuing on to, being down in South America for almost 9 years, using technology every step of the way. It was all kinds of fun stuff. We could geek out on that. And then coming back to the US, kicking and screaming, and then, getting involved with more technology as it relates to the multi-site space. And in that whole time period, watching puzzle pieces come together for what I had seen back in 94 of the beginnings of online church, when on a local BBS, I was connecting via a 2400 baud modem, and then did a hospital visit from someone that I had been debating with in a forum.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. And oddly enough, back in those days, I was still getting my master's. This is before I went to the mission field and stuff. And after that hospital visit where, I got to pray with her, really minister to her. And we had such a deep, profound moment there. The following day, showed up to class. We were studying biblical poetry, and I told the guys, I'm like, dude, cyber church is a thing. And they all laughed at me. And they said, not everybody has a computer, Jason. And even if they did, they don't all have email addresses. They don't all have modems, Yeah.
But they had experienced what you just experienced. So
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I had seen over time how that initial reticence of seeing a small, narrow slice of the population be the early adopters of technology, and then watch it go mainstream every time.
Yeah. And what
watch it.
time was this? Like what was like the year? I'm dating you a little bit.
You said 94 or so, 95?
94. That was when that happened. That's really we're cool. Talking the same year that the the World Wide Web was invented. So I remember putting together, web pages, the very first HTML 1.0
I remember doing that too.
Oh my word. Yes. And the blink tags and everything. Yeah. All of that stuff. So,
good time.
Yeah, totally. When I got back to the States, I had seen puzzle pieces starting to come together with live streaming, which was super janky back in the day, running at, 10 frames per second and stuff like that. It's just not a great experience, but I saw the potential in there. And then, I was watching other churches poke at it, whether it be like Saddleback or Menlo Park or Life Church, just different ways where we started doing podcasting. I got our church to start podcasting audio and then video and stuff like that. So it was all kind of VOD-ish in the way that it was functioning. But I saw that there was an opportunity for us to do things live. And then one day, when senior pastor, as I was this was during the time when I was back, assistant campus pastor, and really passionate, all throughout the rest of my life. This through line of technology was on top of all the ministry stuff that I was doing. And, senior pastor said, hey, I just went on vacation, 5 hours away, and met someone who said that they were members of our church who had never stepped foot in any of our on-site campuses, and they gather together at the lake and watch our video podcast every Sunday with their group.
That's awesome.
There's clearly something to this. I know you've been talking about this for a long time, and I never understood it until now. Now I get it.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you be our next online campus pastor? That was back in 2010. Only a handful of
It
churches.
took a long time to get there.
Yeah, it did. Yeah,
You know?
a lot of It's funny. A lot of the guys on staff, they were always telling me that it's really difficult for me because I live like 5 years in the future, and it takes a while for stuff to get around. I'm just waiting, right? Just watching and waiting.
Jason, I feel like your story is very similar to mine. I don't know if you know my story too well, but
no, tell me your story. I don't know that much.
A lot of the people already know, so I'll keep it brief. But I was a Harry Potter forum administrator back in '99, and I helped build this forum and kind of built it off of PHP, off of different BBB. It was like the BB thread forum type. Anyways, and I was 9 years old, so I'm like really dating myself then. But I ran that forum for about 5-6 years, and we won an award from J.K. Rowling, which was cooler then than it is now. But in that moment, in that context, that's when I also answered the call to ministry. At the same time, I was like, we can do evangelism online if we go into these forums and we start making relationships, because I had such a great community from my Harry Potter forum. Like, I had such good friends, and I was like, these people don't know Christ. Like, how can I help bring the gospel to them? And I realized, I was like, oh, like, this is actually like a viable thing. And that's how I kind of really got very passionate about it. And it's kind of how I got into church communications, was very much following that same thread of, I feel called to ministry, but I don't know what that looks like. Because I don't think it's like preaching. And so I was like, what exactly is it? And God's been very evident along the way, but I think that's really cool. I think our stories are very similar, so I appreciate you sharing.
That's really cool. I think in the church comm space, a lot of what I love about your story, especially as it relates to church comms, is many times we're thinking about internal communication, and we're not thinking about external communication as much, when that's our real job.
Yeah. Like, that's the only job. That's literally all that Jesus told us to do, was make disciples. Like, to love one another, and two, to make disciples. Like, that is it. Like, and it's funny because, like, I was talking to a pastor the other day, and he was like, Katie, the only questions that are going to be on the final quiz when you get to heaven are, did you love God and did you love people? Like, that's it, And I was like, oh man, that's so good, because it's why I love online communication. It's why I love church communication, is I think though I'm very evangelistic. I'm not like a normal Baptist. Baptist has teachers. And I am like, no, we must go to the nations on the internet, but how can we do it? And I've been annoying like that ever since I was a kid in those Harry Potter forums. So
that's really cool, because one of the things that always annoyed me being a missionary in Paraguay was that I felt like I still wasn't doing the Great Commission like Jesus had asked us to do, because he said, make disciples of all nations. And I only had 2 under my belt at the time. And what was great was to get to the place where, and I kept track, was to get to the place where I could literally say every single nation as defined by the United Nations, because that gets tricky, because it changes. Every single nation I had a chance to expose to the message of Jesus, at least for a little bit. And so I feel like I could, like you were saying, I feel like I could stand before Jesus one day with my head held high and say, I gave it a good college try, every nation done somehow. Maybe it wasn't the greatest, but whatever. I'm trying.
What do you think, Jason, you were saying that a lot of people laughed at you back in the day of, when you pitch these ideas of reaching the nations through the internet. What are people laughing at right now? Is it metaverse? Is it using the VR headset metaverse world? Is it more AI stuff? What is the maybe turn your nose at technology that maybe in 5 years that's how we reach the nations?
Well, metaverse is a big one, and yeah, it's been in evolution for a lot longer than people think. If you just go back on the timelines of Second Life, which was around back in, or there's things like that where, yeah. Anyway, that's one. One is metaverse, and the other is digital only church. So one thing that has happened post-COVID is hybrid church is here to stay. I mean, even the data proves that. We did a study here at PushPay recently. 89% of churches are doing hybrid. So they're live streaming, doing a digital and a physical expression of their church. And to think about that, to get 89% of churches to agree that that's what they should be doing and that's what they are doing is just remarkable in and of itself. You can't get that number of churches to agree on whether or not they should be having Sunday school or small group or whatever. True. But when it comes to live streaming, they're already there as it relates to hybrid. But where they're not there quite yet is considering, we could just do the whole thing digitally. They're turning their nose up at that. But not as many as you'd think. I mean, oddly enough, the data is showing and trending that for the new church planters, they're at the very least starting digitally because that's how every relationship they've ever known functions. They start digitally with a church. If it ends up becoming physical, fine, but that's not the goal. And that part right there is a paradigm shift that I think a lot of people aren't thinking through because we're thinking through right now event-based discipleship to do the Great Commission when it might actually be something very different, like relational-based or long-tail, evergreen, VOD kind of stuff. And getting churches out of the event-based mindset is probably a bigger paradigm shift than getting into contemporary worship because it changes everything in the same way. Yeah.
What the argument against that might be, or I guess let me ask the question of the argument is the things that we're losing in that. If we go fully 100% digital, do not have a physical expression in the form of an event like a worship service on Sunday, would you say that we're missing, the physical touch, missing physical relationships, missing sacraments? What are some of the arguments that you've, encountered, and how have you responded to those?
Right. Yeah. All of those things are true. However, if you're going to only limit yourself to a physical expression that only occurs weekly, you're also missing things. Because you look back at the book of Acts where it says they met daily. Show me a church that does that. We can do that digitally. And in fact, a lot of my digital communities function that way. We meet daily.
Yeah.
And we're in each other's lives on a daily basis, very much like when Jesus called the disciples and said, come follow me, not once a week, join me at the temple once a week. He didn't say that. It's like more of a daily relational side of ministry that I feel like the church has forgotten because we want to fit it into our schedules instead of prioritizing the relational side of ministry in a way that can actually work. So that's one thing. Yes. Are we losing things? Yeah. But we're gaining things too. And the things that we lost can be done at a different cadence. So like the thing that I just mentioned, the idea of daily versus weekly, you're just doing different things on a daily and weekly cadence, right? We may not be meeting together daily, but we're in each other's lives daily, right? We're praying for one another daily. We're doing the one another's of the scriptures in a daily fashion. And when it comes to sacraments, giving someone a hug, being there for someone physically, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do that. What I am saying is, do we have to do that every week? That's the question. Because, just look at Comic-Con. They do it once a year. They have vibrant communities that function in the digital space all year long. And they have one big blowout once a year. And it makes me wonder, maybe if we got back to a more primal way of doing community that might be a lot like what you find with the feast days in the Old Testament, which, by the way, did not happen every week either. It happened on a quarterly basis or something like that. So what if we had like blowout, big time, highly engineered, meaningful moments and experiences physically where we gathered once a quarter, and we had the money and the budget and the time to execute them at a very high level. And then throughout the rest of the time on a daily basis, have a digital expression where we're in each other's lives and that sort of thing. That's not all that far fetched, because we kind of do that already when it comes to conferences and things like that anyhow, or camp, we express that in other ways already, but we don't think of it as an expression of church. And what I'm saying is, let's play around with the frequency a little bit. I'm not saying that that our habit should be not to gather together. There's scripture about that. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, what does that rhythm look like? That's what we could play with.
Hi, it's Katie Allred, and I want to tell you a little bit more about churchcompro.com. ChurchCom Pro, we are really excited about this membership offering because it's going to be different from anything that we've done before. We're excited to professionalize the industry, to give back to this community that has given us so much. And so the membership, it includes courses on church communications, my foundational course on church communications that goes along with my book. Through that course, you will create a communications plan. You will create a crisis communications plan. You'll create a social media plan. We will walk you step by step on how to do that, how to audit your communications and how to audit your website and how to build a website step by step. But then what's really cool is we also have other courses, like that we have a Chat GPT mastery courses for churches, as well as certification, and we are planning so many more. I'm really excited, and I hope that you will join us. It's going to be $29 a month, so less than $1 a day, so that you can learn more and grow with us, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
All right, so let's rewind a little bit for churches who haven't even started down that track. All right, let's kind of get on the intro live stream bandwagon for just a second. Talk to me about the benefits of why live streaming is such an important part of church communications. How can it enhance the worship experience, in person, remote? Give me the benefits of why, if a church are in that 11% maybe that haven't started, or they are really needing to take it to 2.0, maybe there's another, 50% that we're kind of doing it, but we're kind of half doing it just because we know we kind of need to, but need to enhance it. Give me some benefits.
Okay. So, let's talk about that 11% for a minute. Let's say that your expression of church you feel really strongly about needs to be physical. And by the way, I'm not knocking on that. The church has done that for millennia. So I'm not knocking that. However, if your goal is to introduce new people that live within the geographic reach of one of your physical campuses to your church, if your goal is not, transfer growth, well, it might even be transfer growth. I don't know. It is a means by which people can get to know your church. Your first impression of your church, if people are church shopping, is not the parking lot, and it's not your greeters and first impressions. It's your webpage and it's your live stream. That's how people are going to get to know your church. So even if your strategy is, oh, we just want to do church physically, you are really shooting yourself in the foot if you don't show people what your church is like before they come for the first time.
Do you have any stats on that? No, obviously we all agree that the homepage or your website is the front door.
Right.
Do you have any stats on percentages of people who watch a live stream before they come to a in-person gathering?
I don't, man, that is a great question, Carl, because I don't have stats. I do have a lot of anecdotal evidence. And the churches that I talk to and confirm and validate my own personal experience that we're talking around 70, 80% of people who show up for the first time have been online dating you for months and you don't even know it. Now, whether or not you capture that data in your membership class or in your Connect card when they do show up on site, that will give you a better idea in your community of the efficacy of live streaming. But I've seen it happen time and time again for those churches who decide to track. How did you hear about us? You know, what was all of them are saying, we watched you guys online. And in some cases, it takes them years for them to show up for the first time on site after engaging with you online. I know that I would set up camp in the lobby as an online pastor to kind of merge the worlds a little bit. And I had people come up to me almost every week that say, hey, this is my first time. I've been watching you online and I wanted to say hi. You know, that kind of anecdotal evidence proves to me a lot. And we ran some data for a while. It wasn't, you know, for an entire year, but for about a month or so. It was just like in our membership class, it's like, when was the first time you were exposed to our church? And the overwhelming majority, almost all of them, was online first. So even if your strategy is physical, you can't discount that huge top of the funnel that you'd be missing.
Very true. What are they looking for in a live stream? Are they looking for highly produced level of production? Or are they looking for, is that a turnoff? Yeah. You know, if your production is subpar, are they looking for great graphics content, visual content? What are the key factors that people would take your next step in online dating you?
Okay, this is a little bit counterintuitive because you kind of have to, in the same way where one would architect a service physically, one of the things you're trying to do outside of your production quality, you're trying to remove barriers. That's what you're really trying to do between the audience that you're trying to reach and Jesus. And we look at it and we call it excellence, but what it's really doing is removing obstacles. And so in the same way, the excellence of your live stream has more to do with what you're removing obstacles. One of which would be, and it's a little counterintuitive, is like, what's your audio quality like? I don't know how many live streams I've seen where I pop on, and if the audio quality is bad, who cares what the video quality is like, what kind of graphics you got, what kind of vibe there is. I can't even begin to know how your church is feeling or how it would feel in the room if I have bad audio. And for me, it's just like, I bail. I know it's like if it's bad, I bail, you know? So audio quality is actually more important than the video quality is. And then for a lot of people, if your idea is the 11% physical worship kind of stuff, the people that are watching you are trying to get a vibe for what is the style of your church? Is it laid back? Is it buttoned up? I mean, you can have an excellent choir or an excellent guitar riff, both have excellence, but they hit different audiences. And when you're even in like sermon topic kind of stuff, they're looking for things like, okay, are they talking about money all the time? Are they political? Are they inclusive? Are they diverse? You know, all of the main things that we would think of, they're scoping all of that out ahead of time with your live stream, as well as your statement of faith, right? Which they're looking for if they're church shopping, right? They're trying to see evidence of your statement of faith in the way that you express that statement of faith. And it's one of those things where I can like look at something, and you guys do this too, because you consult all the time. You know, you can tell in about 5 minutes the vibe of a church real quick.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And people do that all the time. They're trying to figure out, okay, do I fit in here? Do I fit in here?
Right.
So if they can, is there a place for me? Do I fit in here? And some of that has to do with the way in which you execute church. And some of it really doesn't have anything to do with what happens on the stage. So the way that you execute church for an online setting with the chat and connecting with people on a relational level has a little bit to do with it, because that catches them off guard. If they're coming in and checking you out and saying, what is this church about? And then all of a sudden they're in a conversation with someone, that increases the stickiness of your church so much more than a glitzy, you know, graphics package or even good audio in some cases. The relational side of church is one where we just can't ignore anymore, especially in our post-COVID pandemic of loneliness that we find ourselves in. People are going to church not for content and not for sermons and not for good worship anymore. They're going for connection. They're going for community. They're going for friendship and relationship. And we can offer those sorts of things in ways that really don't have all that much to do with the stage, but have everything to do with like chat and interactions and phone calls after the fact and all of those other things around the service that really meet people's needs where they really are, because that's why they're coming.
I think you bring up some great points. We did a deep dive right in the kind of the start of COVID or so on a bunch of different church websites and stuff like that. And you hit on some great things in that they're looking for your stream and they're looking for your statement of faith. And I was shocked in the research that we did how hard it was to find those two things. I had to dig forever to find. I'm like, you have no other events going. I mean, this was during COVID. There is nothing else going on at your church. This should be front and center. Stream now. Like, I mean, I should be able to find it very, very, very quickly. So to find your live stream and to find the statement of faith, I think it's a big downfall on a website. If I have to dig forever to find it, I bail. I'm gone. See ya. So I think you hitting on those two things, that those are what people are looking for. That should be a note to churches in that 11% that are trying to get in, and also more of that percentage that are trying to enhance their experience, that those two things need to be very, very easy to find on the site.
Now, that's true of just one of the 4 audiences that live streaming hits. And that's one thing to be aware of too when it comes to live streaming, because it's very difficult to just narrow yourself to one audience. You're going to hit all 4. And one of them is people who are close to your geographic reach of one of your campuses or locations that don't know your church yet. That's all we've been talking about, right? That's only one. Well, the second one is people who are also close geographically who do know your church, and they're using the live stream to supplement their on-site attendance. So during the summer slump, they're online. When they're on a business trip, when they're on vacation, when their kid is sick, they're online. And where a lot of times we talk about the attendance numbers on site going down, maybe they're not going down like we think they are.
Mm-hmm.
So they might only be showing up on site once a month. Notice the cadence that is changing culturally that we just had a conversation about, right? People are already doing it. The market is already talking. I mean, the market is already telling us what it wants to do, right? People are showing up once a month and they're supplementing the rest of the time online through your live stream.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we could look at that as a bad thing, or we could just accept it as a thing and then take advantage of it, right?
Which brings
Take
me to
advantage
another.
of, yeah. Go ahead.
Brings me to another point of taking advantage of people coming to, if they're already looking for that, let's say 3 times a month on Sunday. I was surprised at how crappy their live stream section of their website was. Or I would hit the live stream and it would be off the air. You know, come back later. There's nothing.
Yes.
I'm like, why not have some VOD content? Why not have a promo video there? Why not have a roll that goes 30 minutes before the stream starts? Why not? I mean, you're missing opportunities there that you can talk to people and show them about your church while they're waiting, while it's on the TV, while you're getting ready, a cup of coffee and going to the bathroom to get ready because your kid's sick and they're sitting on. I mean, what do you think about missed opportunities like that?
Okay, so all you have to do is look at the stats of not only views or, you know, how many hits, whatever it is, however you want to slice that data, fine. Don't look at that. Look at this. Look at when people are watching. So one of the things that we discovered was we saw this huge spike of people begin to watch the live stream at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. The crazy thing is we don't have a service at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday. They would watch it on Monday. They would watch it on Tuesday. We'd get like this. Usually after Tuesday is when they tapered off a little bit. So in other words, they are the ones that are determining when they want to do church online. And that is a little bit different of a mindset than the event-based live. I'm not discounting live streaming because there's something unique about it. But at the same time, if people are going to supplement for that second group, right? If they're going to supplement their attendance online, they're going to do it on their terms because they already told you that because they're not in the building, right? They're going to do it on their terms.
Right.
So you might as well go with it and allow them to experience the whole thing when you're not live.
Correct.
In a VOD setting.
Correct. Which
because
you guys
exactly
absolutely can help them with. Not that this was turned into a sales pitch, but you guys at Resi can definitely help people with having a video on demand situation.
Oh, yeah.
Where their sermons are laid out beautifully or something like that. But yeah, we found that also that during COVID, people will still do 5-song worship sets. People would totally skip over that and jump in right at like, 11:27. I wonder what's happening right about now. It's the sermon only. They're skipping the worship to jump right to the sermon. So to have some more VOD solutions where people can jump right to the content that they want when they want it is beneficial. All right, one last thing, and then we can wrap up. And you hit on the relational aspect of live stream. And especially the chat feature. And I do think that this is a missed opportunity that a lot of churches don't explore more, is transition your volunteer base to being online as well. If you have your first impressions team, your tech team, your whatever on Sunday, why not also have, or in a rotation of, they're in the online experience as well. Campus pastors, volunteer greeters, people that can be that relational arm in the online live stream arena. You want to talk about that for a sec?
Yeah, I'll give you a really great example of a couple of things that kind of converge on what you just said. One of the things that it's just a small little tactic that made all the difference in the world, is we at the church I was at, we switched up our liturgy a little bit for the online audience, which was the majority audience. So we might as well not focus as the primary audience of our on-site audience being the primary audience, but our digital audience being the primary audience. So much like how the Tonight Show has a live studio audience, but everybody knows where the larger audience is and how the program is being dictated by the larger audience. In the same way, we changed up our programming to be more online friendly. Like, for example, not doing 5 worship songs on the front end. I even tried to, and for on-site, right? So we changed our on-site liturgy. So I asked him, I tried really hard. I'm like, just don't do any worship songs. Just, and they freaked out, right? Right. Don't do any worship songs. Do all of your worship set on the back end, right?
What?
And they're like, no, we can't do that. And here's why. It wasn't for worship reasons. It's because people still needed to get in the parking lot. They needed to check in their kids. They needed to come in from the lobby with their coffee or whatever. So the worship set served a practical function.
Yeah.
Right. Yes, exactly. But I told him, I said, that makes sense on site. I get that. But when people are sitting down in their living room, they got all their kids together and they hit play, they don't need that buffer. They want to get to it. Right. And if you're making them wait with a 15-minute countdown and then a 5-song worship set, they're gone, or they're fast forwarding, right? And all you have to do is look at your stats to prove that.
Yeah.
And so I told him, okay, we compromised 1 song on the front end, sermon. And then we took advantage of the time afterwards during the worship set that we put on the back end to do Q&A with the online folks exclusively. And so what I would do is I would tell them on the front end, I said, hey, put all your questions in the chat in the comments, prefix them with a Q, and our team will answer your questions after the sermon. The speaker's going to come in the studio and we're going to answer all your questions. Our average watch time went from 4.5 minutes, which is still pretty decent considering all the flyby 3-second views one would get, right? 4.5 average watch time to an hour and a half average watch time, especially given, and what's crazy about it, our service times are 55 minutes. You know why they stuck around? So they could have their questions answered afterwards, which was a good 20 minutes, 30 minutes after the service. We're answering questions, and we're answering questions with, I bring people in and around the table. You know who I'd put around the table? Not just me and not just the speaker who was, given the sermon. I would also bring in a first impressions person. I'd bring in another volunteer that for 2 reasons that was good. One is for those people in the first audience of the 4 who were checking us out for the first time, it gave them yet another familiar face so that if and when they showed up the first time, they know that person because that person chimed in on one of their questions 2 months ago. They already know that person's name. So when it eased the transition for them to come in on site, because now there's people that they know that would be in the lobby. And second thing, it gave it online exposure to our volunteers who would normally be so focused in on on-site ministry that they lose the perspective, we're actually ministering to an audience that is much larger than people that are just milling around in the lobby right now. That it gave them exposure at the same time. So it worked in 2 ways. I was kind of educating our staff and our volunteer teams, while at the same time, I was helping people in that first audience know people when they arrived.
Okay, well, Jason, this has been a really good conversation about church online, about live streaming, and I think that somebody can take something away from this. But what would be one major thing that you would want people to take away from this conversation?
That it's relational. A lot of times we get wrapped up in content, which, I'm not saying content doesn't matter. It does.
Sure.
But in a world where we are content rich and community poor, we have an opportunity to give people community and what they're really craving around whatever kind of content that we might happen to be doing that particular week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The community
The content
side
should facilitate the discipleship and relationship.
Yes. And that happens. This gets us away from the event-based discipleship that we're used to doing once a week, and it turns it into something that could happen all throughout the week. So, online ministry, all that thing, get your stream squared away, VOD, all that stuff. It all matters. Don't hear that it doesn't. It does. But it acts as a catalyst for relationship. That if you spend all your time doing the videos and making your pathways and getting everything all glitzy, and you don't just call somebody on the phone, or shoot out an email or pray for someone, you are missing the biggest opportunity ever. Because you're doing a lot of content management, but you're not doing ministry yet. You're not doing discipleship yet. And even with a little bit of content, you can do a lot of community. And a lot of times I feel like we get that reversed.
When I did online community for a tech company one time. And, something that I realized was community leaders create content to connect, whereas creators, they create content just to create content, right? Like they're having to entertain their audience, whereas we're not entertaining our audience. We're connecting our audience. We're building a community. It's very different. And so, that's a really great point, Jason. Thank you for sharing that. And I think I would also like to ask, how can people get in touch with you? How can they connect with you if they would like to learn more or just get in touch with you?
Yeah, the email works great. jason.morris@resi.io is a great way to get a hold of me. I am all about helping the Big C church. And the reason why I'm in Resi right now is to begin building tools to help us do just that. Tools that fill in the gaps that we've been having as online ministers for over a decade. I'm like, okay, we got to fix this post-COVID. So let's do it. I've always loved talking about online ministry, helping the Big C church reach a global audience and get the job done so we can all go home.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Jason. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, it's been an honor.
Thanks for joining us for the Church Communications Podcast. To learn more and get more resources for your church, visit churchcommunications.com.